Australia at home. Ice in his veins, Pat Cummins has led his team to a famous victory here at Edgbaston. 72 they needed when he came to the crease, and he has got his team over the line.
2 weeks ago, I made a video in which I talked about the strengths of Gazball ahead of the highly anticipated Ashes series, which started last week. In the title, I obviously made it clear that I rated Gazball and the New England way of playing quite highly after they had dominated cricket for the previous 18 months. In the last few minutes of the video, I do however raise the counterpoint that Australia has all of the tools to be the team to finally beat Brendan McCullum's side in a bilateral series. And Australia did just that in the first test of the Ashes, pipping England at the post to go 1-0 up in the series. In retrospect, the title that suggests that Gazball is unstoppable probably used just a bit too much hyperbole. However, in my defence, that is how YouTube titles work. What we did see in this test match is that Australia became the first team to truly frustrate Gazball by fighting hard and refusing to be bullied by the English team. And although it came late and was a miracle victory, the game did outline the best way for Australia to beat this England side. In this video, I'm going to cover how Australia won the first test of the series, while also looking at the several mistakes England made throughout the match. Let's start with the Aussies. The game began with England winning the toss and batting on what looked to be the flattest track in world cricket, as per the request of Ben Stokes earlier this year. The field was set interestingly by Pat Cummins, with numerous players on the boundary to prevent the England batters from finding the rope. It mattered for very little first ball as Zach Crawley absolutely pumped Pat Cummins to the boundary. That ball may just sum up what is going to be an insane few weeks of cricket. After all the anticipation, for Crawley, a batter under pressure to slap the ball to the rope was a big sign of intent for England. The Aussie captain's decision to have fielders on the boundary for the majority of the match was heavily criticised by what seemed like every expert in the game. For many, the sight of an Australian team not attacking and going toe-to-toe with England seemed gross and out of the ordinary. Many expected Australia to really go after England on the first day with an all-out attack approach, attempting to blow their batting out of the order. And of course, these experts were right. I mean, the best way to beat this England team, that thrives purely on boundaries and momentum, would be to set attacking fields on the most lifeless pitch England has seen in years. An Australian captain has to be aggressive and always take the positive option. Any other tactics would be un-Australian, right? Pat Cummins is not like other Australian captains. He is progressive, intuitive, and aims to outsmart the opposition rather than to play big dumb bully ball. The smartest option on that pitch against England's formidable batting lineup was to set defensive fields and allow England to get themselves out. That was Australia's best way of winning the test match, and Pat Cummins, as well as the Australian coaching staff, knew that England would oblige. For all of England's strengths, they are a one-dimensional cricket team. Where Australia can keep their composure during periods of slow scoring, England is a time bomb as their batters prioritise entertainment over success. I mentioned in the aforementioned video that every other team England has played has had little success against the strategy. In retrospect, I think that's because each team has taken the all-out attack route, believing that if England are going to play like this, chances will come. But what has been learnt over time is that this strategy is going to keep working. Australia has done their research and knows that England can't deal with periods where they struggle for boundaries. You can tell by how they operate at the crease that they begin to get itchy. Take the second innings of England's batting for example. Joe Root and Harry Brook were finding the boundary with ease, and Australia were under real pressure until Root's dismissal. Cummins sensed the moment and began to apply scoreboard pressure on Brook, who seemed to be struggling to cope without constantly ticking the scoreboard over. Eventually, he tried to take on a fuller ball from Nathan Lyon, which wasn't there to hit and got caught by Marnus at mid-wicket. These tactics at face value are passive and un-Australian. Previous Aussie captains would have elected to immediately have 3 men surrounding Brook at bat-pad positions, but on this flat pitch, it simply wasn't viable. The patience of the Australians to not get caught up in the Gazball storm while the crowd got louder and louder needs to be lauded, and I think this comes down to the cool-headed nature of the Australian leadership, especially Pat Cummins, but don't forget about Andrew McDonald. He isn't your typical Australian coach. He wasn't a massive success at international level or a world-renowned cricketer, but he is exactly what the Aussie team needs. A calming, intelligent influence who understands the intricacies and tactics needed to beat this England team. Now, I'm not saying that the previous coach was a bad coach by any stretch, but he wasn't exactly patient or calm. Australia lost many unlosable games under Langer. Many of such games are now being won by this current Australian team under McDonald. I don't think that's a coincidence. And that's not to say I wasn't frustrated at times by the tactics employed in the first test, because believe me, I was. There were times in the match when, in my view, Australia should have went more on the attack, but overall it mattered little as Cummins was patient and bided his time before going all out. Take day 3 for example. When England began their second innings, Australia again set defensive fields and England slowly started to work their way into the innings. After a short rain delay, the ball started to move around off the pitch. Cummins sensed a moment in the game, got himself and Scott Boland into the attack, each claiming a wicket. The intuition from Cummins is incredibly impressive. He waited and then when the time was right, took the chance and it paid off. I think Australia will look to continue with these tactics in the next few tests, even if they are considered un-Australian and negative. However, judging by the Lord's pitch, we may see Australia take a more aggressive approach in this game should the ball move around a bit more. Before we get into England, I want to talk about this partnership. When Kerry fell at 3:15am East Coast time in Australia, I gave little to no chance of Australia pulling off a miracle. In all my time watching Australia in Test cricket, the team had never won a chase like this. I'd seen games like Bengaluru in 2017 and Adelaide in 2018, where I thought Australia was a big chance, only to fail every time. Australia's highest run chase in the last 12 years was South Africa 2011, and you best believe it was this man there to hit the winning runs last time. It wasn't long ago that Cummins was on the verge of being considered an all-rounder. His batting, particularly in 2017 and 18, was very impressive and he made a number of handy contributions down the order. However, over time, as Cummins has taken more responsibility as vice-captain and now captain, less focus has gone into his batting and as a result, his numbers have decreased. That is why when Carey fell and it was left to Cummins and Lyon, I wasn't very hopeful. Don't get me wrong, I still see Nathan Lyon as the next Don Bradman, but he still at this stage needs a bit more time to develop. Immediately after the Carey wicket, Stokes elected to keep bowling Joe Root. At this stage in the match, Australia was still a long way from where they needed to be, still requiring 54 to win. At this point, Cummins went on the attack, smacking Root for 3 boundaries in the over, and from that point on, England were scrambled. It is crazy that the partnership that won the game for Australia only really gave England one chance, and it was this drop chance from Stokes that would have been an absolute screamer. I do want to mention the luck here though for Lyon. If this shot goes a metre shorter, then it is a chest mark for Ben Stokes. A metre longer and Crawley is sprinting in off the rope and likely taking a catch. It's crazy the inches that can mean win or loss in sport. The composure of Lyon and Cummins needs to be commended. They managed England's tactics beautifully. Apart from the aforementioned drop chance, they both played the short ball well, either leaving it alone or working it to the leg side. When England went full, they took their chance to score. This match had some awesome shots played. I'm going to talk about Root in a second, who played some ridiculous cricket. But the shot of the match, in my opinion, was played by Sir Donald Bradman II. The audacity with the game on the line to pick up England's best bowler off his pads and dispatch him over wide men-on was insane. When Cummins hit the winning runs, you could see how much it meant to him, Lyon, and the Australian team. For 5 days, their captain was berated for the style of cricket he elected to play, with the criticism rife, as has been the case for his entire tenure. For Cummins to save his team and guide them to victory by playing his style of cricket must have been an incredible feeling. Lyon too must have been elated after being on the receiving end of a devastating loss 4 years earlier. As for England, their emotion must be mixed. Their style of play worked for the majority of the test match, but right when they were about to go massively ahead in the game, Gazball came back to bite them. Joe Root was masterful in each innings, and in my opinion, despite Usman Khawaja's incredible match, I thought Root was the best player on the park for the game. What Root has is the ability to mix in the Gazball style of cricket alongside his game that got him thousands of runs before McCullum took over. He has periods where he takes on the bowlers, but then he also understands when it's time to bunker down and absorb pressure. The other England batters don't have that understanding or ace up their sleeve. That's why when you look at a lot of England's dismissals, it seems more like they've got themselves out rather than the Australians bowling incredible deliveries, aside from this one of course.
Oh, if you don't mind, Pat Cummins!
And that is a major weakness of Gazball, the fallacy that entertainment takes priority over wins. I've read a lot of stuff out of the England camp in the last few days from guys like Zach Crawley, Ollie Robinson and James Anderson, and a lot of it seems to insinuate that despite losing, the English have claimed some sort of moral victory. There are no moral wins in professional sport. As harsh as it is, sport is determined by wins and losses. The talk about the goal of Gazball being to save Test cricket and to entertain audiences is great and all, but if it loses 5-0, is it still entertaining? The England supporters leaving Edgbaston would have been certainly entertained, but I'm sure they would have rather won the match. It was this line that really confused me, and it comes from Ollie Robinson, who already had an interesting test match. He states that after the game, McCullum spoke to the team, stating that the Aussies only had a chance of winning because of them. With all due respect, Brendan, you had multiple opportunities to not give Australia a chance. Declaring 8 down with the world's best batter at the crease gave Australia a chance, but you didn't have to do it. Losing a cluster of wickets due to expansive shots gave Australia a chance, but you didn't have to do it. Leaving Mark Wood out on the pitch where he was probably needed gave Australia a chance, but again, you didn't have to do it. If the goal of the England team is to entertain and avoid draws, then that is fine, but then don't act as if you weren't really trying to win, because at the end of the day, as much as I considered Robinson's send-off directed at Khawaja poor form, it showed that England still is desperate to win this Test series. A 5-0 series loss for England in the most entertaining series ever is not a successful series in the eye of the public and the British media. The thing is as well is that line of dialogue isn't necessary from the English camp. They played some extraordinary cricket over the course of the 5 days, but just got outdone by an amazing stand by Lyon and Cummins at the end. Gazball works, it just needs some tweaks in both tactics and mentality if it is to become a viable strategy in the long term. I'm very interested to see if England continues the all-out assault at Lords in the coming days.
Oh, what a shot that is. Where has he pulled that one out of? Nathan Lyon. The flip over mid-on and we're down to single figures.